Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to national invited speakers. Today we are having speakers from so many different countries of the world. My name is Saleha. I'm a professor of statistics at Connect College for Women in Lahore, Pakistan, and also rendering services as honorary director of PyStar. The focal person is Dr. Syed Wasim Abbas, who is Assistant Director at the Bureau of Statistics, Punjab, Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, this is day one of the 18th conference on statistical. Imperial College of Business Studies, Lahore, and it is being jointly organized by the Islamic Countries Society of Statistical Sciences and the Park Institute of Statistical Training and Research. That the series of ICCS conferences commenced with ICCS 1 more than 30 years ago, and devotion, commitment, and consistent hard work of the ICCS team, 2 series of conferences have been running successfully ever since. It's a matter of pride and honor for me and our team that this time the conference is being organized jointly by ICCS and PyStar, as I just said, stands for the, ladies and gentlemen, the Institute employs best practices and so for spreading statistical thinking. I need to hold on for a second. And the objective is empowerment of professionals, academicians, conducted during the period of the COVID-19 pandemic. The first one was held on the 27th of June 2020. Recently, PyStar has launched its statistical consultancy service. With you, one project going on. It's the first one, and I would like to welcome others to us. If you are, we have a panel of experts. We have various people who can guide you. And ladies and gentlemen, this morning, just about 2 hours ago, PyStar organized the prize distribution ceremony of phase 1 of the ISLP International Poster Competition. And this was held for the first time in Pakistan. We had, as many of you know, ISLP stands for the International Statistical Literacy Project, and their competition has been running for the past few years, but we are happy that this year Pakistan is also a part of it. And the ceremony this morning went very well. On October 18, 2020, online event entitled 5-star celebration of the World Statistics Day 2020, in which eminent statisticians from 6 continents of the world, I think all continents other than Antarctica, presented invited talks on various topics. And ladies and gentlemen, today on day 1 of the 18th International Conference of Statistical Sciences, we are organizing a similar online event under the title Online Session of International Invited Speakers, in which again, today, once again, we have eminent statisticians, 6 different continents of the world, who will be presenting invited talks on various topics related to statistics. This is the world map, and I'm delighted by these 6 dots that are representing the 6 continents from where we will be having invited speakers today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what is the plan for the day? A slight deviations from the time that is written here. I hope that all of you will understand that this is, sometimes we have technical problems, sometimes some other problems, so that is possible. So after these words of welcome by me, I will be requesting Associate Professor Akay from Turkey, who I met when I was invited there as an invited speaker, and who's become a very nice friend. He will be delivering his talk. And of course, you are welcome to put questions to him. Subsequent to him, we'll be having our Professor Shahjahan Khan, who is from basically he's from Bangladesh, but he's been in Australia for a very long time. And of course, for us, the most important thing is that he is the past president of the Islamic Country Society of Statistical Sciences. After that, Associate Professor Enriqueta Reston from Philippines will be rendering her talk. And I met her in Japan in 2018, and we became good friends quickly. We were, by good luck, in the same hotel, and so we were meeting each other at breakfast time every day. After that, we have Professor Olawale O from Nigeria. I don't know the gentleman. Today I will get to know him. I'm so delighted that Thomas, who is our perpetual participant from Kenya, for our online with Olawale. After that, we have Professor Laura Martignan, and she's basically from Colombia, but she has been working in Italy also. And I believe that at this point in time, she is working in Germany. I met her in Malaysia during the IASE conference, and I invited her to come to Pakistan, and she was almost actually going to come for our last conference. But since it was very, very close to Christmas, she was unable to do it because she had to be with her family for Christmas. So I'm delighted, Laura, to have you today online, and hopefully we can have you coming to Pakistan in the near future. After that, we will have Professor Kevin Keane from Canada, from UNBC, the University of Northern British Columbia in Canada. This gentleman is the one that I've known for a very, very long time, because he was one of my fellow students at the University of Toronto when I, alhamdulillah, got the scholarship from the government of Pakistan, under which I went to the University of Toronto. So I've known him and his wife for such a long time, 1983, 84. And then there was Slovenia. I met him again after 24 years. And then he also visited Pakistan and stayed at Connect College and did wonderful, great workshops. Today, his talk is about COVID-19. After that, there are words of appreciation by Dr. Muhammad Hanif, President of ICCS, and then the concluding remarks. So now, without I will be requesting in a short while, Professor, do you pronounce it Yuxil Akai Unvan? If it's incorrect, please do correct it when I give you a chance to talk. But before I do that, I would like to present, ladies and gentlemen, a short summary of his academic and professional achievements. He works at the TC Ankara Yildirim Beyazıt University. Now I need to get my glasses, just hold on. All right, so it's in front of you. His PhD, his MS, his BS, and his work experience, Ankara Yildirim Beyazıt University, Department of Banking and Finance. His area of expertise, I think, is finance. And I think today's talk is also related to finance. You can read the rest of it, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, there it is. Expertise and interests, banking and finance, applied statistics, technology, IT, project management, risk management, and so on. And the title of the talk is Financial Risk Analysis. So I think, Dr. Wasim, I need your help. Akai, I think you would like to share your screen and you would like to present your slides, right? So Dr. Wasim, if you could please stop share here, then Akai can share the screen. Yes, Akai, you can now share your screen, please. Okay. ये हटाए ना, ये जो आ रहा है stuff, थोड़ा सा कम नहीं हो सकता ये जो चीज़ है? उनकी आवाज नहीं आ रही. Akai, you have to unmute yourself, please. Hello.
Hello, it is
Yes,
now.
Yes, now I can hear you. Go
okay.
ahead.
First of all, I want to say thank you to Saleha and this committee. And I will start my presentation. My topic is financial risk analysis. You know, nowadays money is more important than the previous because of Corona. You know, there are some bad situations for all of us. So we should minimize our risks. I will explain how. Financial risk analysis, my topic, as I said. Sorry. Yes. First of all, I want to explain what is financial risks and when they arise. Here there is a definition. Financial risks are uncertainties. This is an important point. There is a situation, but you don't know exactly how it will end. In this case, there is a risk. If this is a financial risk, this can be market risk, liquidity risk, credit risk, business risk, investment risk, and operational risk. I'm also interested in business intelligence, and financial data analysis is also related with this risk. How? We can use this technology, we can use these tools, we can use this blah blah for early warning systems. It is useful to minimize default risks. This is like decision support system is also useful for better decision. Also, there is another topic. This is business analytics. Is the process of applying data mining techniques. You know, there are data warehouses, data marts, and you can get information, you can get data from these areas by using some data mining techniques, especially for what? Especially for large volume of data. So we can say that business analytics has become compulsory for all of us, not just for organizations, for managing risks. Okay, let's continue. What about financial risk management? I think it has two sides. One of them, monitoring financial risks, but it is not enough. Also, you should manage their effects. Otherwise, it is not sufficient for minimizing this risk. Financial risk here is the risk that a company may default on its debt payments. Especially in these days, we face these situations. Especially in Turkey, there are lots of firms work lost. So they have some payment problems. Okay. A prediction of corporate default, this is another site, another title, is an also element of risk management. Risk management, process of identification. First of all, you should know what is risk, analysis, and acceptance or mitigation of uncertainty in investment decisions. If you have money, then you should decide how to invest this money. How? Some techniques by using some tools related with financial risk management. But all of them are related with statistics. Essentially, risk management occurs when an investor or fund manager analyzes and attempts to quantify the potential for losses in an investment, such as moral hazard, and then takes appropriate action or given the fund's investment objectives and risk tolerance. You know this. Risk management activities has three basic steps. Exhaustive identification and classification of the risks, the first one. Measurement of a risk, of the risk associated with a set of potential events. And the last one, timely formulation of actions require the business risks within acceptable bounds. Because there is no investment with zero risk. You can just minimize these risks. It is an acceptable bound. At the beginning of the presentation, for example, market risk. But what is the market risk? Market risk is the risk of losses owing to movements in the level or volatility of market prices. So, it is related with some outside parameters. It is not just related with your firms. It is also related with your environment. Market risk can be categorized as absolute risk or relative risk. Also, market risk can be classified directional and non-directional risk. There are some subtitles. The second one, liquidity risk. It has two forms, asset liquidity risk and funding liquidity risk. The first one arises when a transaction cannot be conducted at prevailing market prices. Okay, the first one. Funding risk, also cash flow risk, sorry, meet for needs of a credit risk, not just for people, also for organizations, also for countries. So this is the basic concept, I think. Credit risk is the risk of losses owing to the fact that counterparties may be unable to fulfill their contractual obligations, as you know. Okay. How we can control this credit risk? By credit limits on notionals, current and potential exposures, and increasingly credit enhancement features such as requiring collateral or marking to market. There are some terminology for finance. Maybe you are not familiar, but I want to say something about this because all of them are related with statistics. I will explain next few slides some studies about this concept, and all of them is related with statistics. Maybe I am a statistician, but it is not enough to interpret the result with this set, but I'm also working in finance and banking department, so two of them are sufficient for study about this concept. Otherwise, one side is missing. Okay. Plus one operational risk. It's related with human. Operational risk is the risk of loss resulting from inadequate or failed internal process, people, and systems, or from external events. Operational risk is related with people at most, I think, according to my experience, at least. Operational risk also includes legal risk, which arises from exposures to fines, penalties, or punitive damages resulting from supervisory actions, as well as private settlements. Okay. I want to talk about some studies about financial risks because these studies are guide for us. For example, Gu Peng Wang present an MCDM-based approach to rank a selection of popular clustering algorithms in the domain of financial risks. How? An experimental study is designed, and to validate the proposed approach using 3 MCDM methods, 6 clustering algorithms, 11 cluster validity indices over 3 real-life credit risk and bankruptcy risk data sets. You know, for statisticians, data is important. For example, in my country, sometimes you have problem for finding data. According to this study, the effectiveness of MCDM methods in evaluating clustering algorithms and indicate that the repeated partition method is two good two-way clustering solutions on the selected financial risk data sets. Another study claimed risk assessment is very important to an organization. This is the conclusion of this study. The authors have used data collected from executives over a 3-year period. And 3 main categories. Also another result, the importance of customers and their behavior in influencing risk patterns to an organization. Also, Darwish used to predict credit risk, where in Egyptian commercial banks, in the Egyptian. They have considered some attributes. What are these? Profitability, operation ability, and liquidity to predict the credit risk. Another study is related with Slovak entities, identification of significant factors and determinants affecting the prosperity of Slovak companies, and they use regression in this study. And multiple regression analysis, the statistically significant determinants that affect the future financial developments of company are identified, as well as the regression model bankruptcy prediction. And significant predictors, net return on capital, cash ratio, quick ratio, current ratio, net working capital, and current debt. E over TA ratio and current debt ratio, financial debt ratio, and current assets turnover. To grow, investigate the implementation of corporate culture and financial risk management in Islamic social enterprises. This is related with Islamic social enterprises. They used qualitative descriptive that using manager self-assessment questionnaire, and 24 respondents from 100 respondents in Jakarta and Java Island. The results is important. Financial risk management has an average of above 80%, but for corporate culture, improvement implementation. Okay. There are lots of studies. Another study, Bellas et al. Studied to define and quantify the significant factors which influence the intensity of financial risk, where in the SME segment. SME is the most important segment for Turkish financial industry. Why? Because 99% of the firms are SME. They use Z-score and regression analysis to assess their hypothesis. CRM, CFR, SFS were used. Okay. Here, this research confirmed that entrepreneurs who started their business because of money perceive the effects of crisis on their company's financial risk more intensely. What does it mean? If you have a job, you also add your soul to this job, not just for money. Money is important, but it is not everything. Yes, I will skip some of them, and OLA. OLA analyze and compare the economic and financial risk of resources in SMEs of the V4, you know V4, and Serbia. There is a comparison about this. And they use contingent tables, Z value, and a general non-hierarchical log linear model with 3 category variables and continuous covariate were used. But the important point here is that Serbia is more vulnerable to the financial risk sources studies than the V4 countries. The result is what? Insufficient profit is more hazardous compared to the other risk sources. You know this. Yes, I will skip this one also. Yes.
Okay, Akai, I need to interrupt you. Actually, we are short of time, so maybe you could please come to the conclusion.
Okay. In this case, I will just give some topics and I will end my presentation. Here, there are some tools I said. Is a method of assessing risk that you know. There are some definitions about war. Also, there are some war tools. These are historical simulation, variance and covariance, Monte Carlo simulation methods. Maybe you know these in details. And war is not in some cases. In this case, there are some different kinds of war. What are these? Incremental war, marginal war, and you can compare these according to some properties, and these are my references. But thank you for your attention. I wish Muslims around the world a blessed night of Regaib also. And I want to say something about, this is my conclusion about statistics, just a few words. Although the science of statistics gains importance day by day, statistics departments, graduates, and academicians, and those working in this field cannot see the value they deserve. People from different disciplines try to adapt this branch of science to the field by changing the name of the field, such as data science, when necessary. Whereas if a statistic is an ocean, data science is a glass of water taken from that ocean. As statisticians, we are aware that we are needed at every point. Statistics department at universities are closed due to no demand from students in Turkey. Departments are opened with different names, far from the theoretical background of the subject, only to create demand. At this point, our duty should be to protect the science of statistics and our colleagues. With the work we do, we must eliminate that we are more than a package program, or that a person from another field can do without any training in this field. Further, when we express statistical methods, we should explain where it is used in daily life as much as theory. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Akai. I would like to ask the audience if somebody has any question. Actually, I wanted to say that we had some weak connection here, so it was being interrupted for some time. Dr. Shah Jahan or Dr. Kevin Keane, I can see you right now. Maybe you would like to put some comment or some question? If not, let us all...
just a quick comment. I think Akai has made my presentation probably easier. He has just given the preamble to what I'm going to say in some extent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you, Akai, for giving us so much of your time, and we are delighted to have you. So now I'll share my screen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, subsequent to this very first talk by Akai, let's proceed to the next one. And now we have Professor Shah Jahan Khan from Australia. I would like to share with you very briefly some of his achievements. He is working at the University of Southern Queensland in Toowoomba in Australia. He's been there for quite a few years. And he did his PhD from the University of Western Ontario in Canada back in 1992. He has a number of academic awards and scholarships, as you can see. His extra academic awards and prizes, there's a list of them.
I need to move the slide, please. The slide doesn't show what you're saying, actually. Thank you.
I'm moving the slide, Professor Shah Jahan. One moment. Are you able to see the slide now?
Yeah, it's okay now. Yeah.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, his employment experience is right here in front of you. I don't need to read everything. You can see it. And the most important thing is for us that he is a very dynamic person, and with a lot of commitment and hard work, he has taken ICCS to great heights. Now I request you, Professor Shah Jahan, to deliver your talk, the title being Data Revolution and Statistics, Reshaping Society and Science. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you stop sharing, please?
Yes, now we've stopped sharing.
Okay.
So you could.
Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, I want to thank organizers of this conference for their hard work. And I also want to thank the participants, presenters, sponsors, and the volunteers. And I pay my respect to the founder of this organization, Professor Dr. Munir Ahmed, whom all of us miss very much. May Allah bless him with the highest place in Jannah. ICCS has been kind of in my blood for many years now. So whenever I see any ICCS event happening, I take the opportunity to be part of it. And thank you again for allowing me to join you to make this contribution. So today I'm going to talk about this. Sorry, I have to share this screen first. Just to show my presentation. Okay, everybody can see the slide? Is it visible?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, today I'm talking about the data revolution. Previous speakers talk about the big data a little bit and the risk management statistics and so on, and some sort of frustration as well about statistics, which is unnecessary. If Turkey is doing something not promoting statistics, probably they're going in the wrong direction. I have seen people who claim to use statistics, they're using multiple regression with R² 3%, which is rubbish. And those people should not use statistics. They have no right to even utter the word statistics, R² 3%, and publish paper on that. Anyway, today I'm going to highlight on some of these things as well in my presentation. Given the short time, I probably will go to my presentation. I'm located in here in Down Under, as you can see. Dr. Saleh has probably shown his slide as well. You guys are somewhere here, right there. Yeah, here it is about 7:45 in the night, but you guys have daylight in many places. So that's the living. We are living in a revolution age. It's not big data only, but it's data revolution. As I said, I'll try to explain that. The big data era started, 20 years ago or so, and it got so many things involved in it, and it has now discipline. It was so important at that time, say 2012, when President Barack Obama was in the White House. He declared this big data initiative, and he mentioned that the state of the art for technologies needed to collect, store, preserve, manage, analyze, and share huge quantities of data, harness these technologies to accelerate the pace of discovery in science and engineering, to strengthen our national security and the national security. They probably need to now also secure their national places of importance from their domestic citizens, their citizens or their own citizens, and transfer of technology and teaching and expand all workforces. So these are the big initiative that the United States took at that time. He also appointed a person as the data scientist in the White House during his time. Not only that, the United Nations in 2015, in a resolution in the General Assembly, decided to celebrate the World Statistics Day. And the theme was that better data, better lives. So it came from the top of the world. At that time, the UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, pointed out statistics are critical for evidence-based decision-making across all culture, historical backgrounds of countries, and irrespective of their level of development. He also acknowledged the fundamental importance of sustainable national statistical capacity to produce reliable and timely statistical indicators. I want to ask a question to people who do not value statistics. The United Nations had the Millennium Development Goal, and now they have Sustainable Development Goal. How you measure these things? The 17 Sustainable Development Goals, every one of them, if you want to assess, you need the statistics, statistical indices. And without that, you cannot do much. I mean, if there is a government nowadays who does not value statistics, I can't imagine that can have this edge, because we are going through the data revolution, and this is, look at this here. When I was a student, we talked in terms of the kilobytes. Maybe we are thinking about the megabytes, but now we are already in the petabytes. Petabytes mean that 10 to the power 15, and it is growing and growing and growing. So where we are going, we are in the data revolution. So we need to make sense of data, and to just give you some flavor of how big is the data, I just put together some information here. When you have 100 bytes, it's like a telegram in the olden days, a sentence or so. If you have 100 kilobytes, it's like a low resolution photograph. If you have 100 megabytes, 1 meter of shelf books. And if you have 100 gigabytes, a floor of academic journals. And you have 10 terabytes, the printed collection of the US Library of Congress. And you have 2 petabytes, all US academic research libraries. You have 5 exabytes, all words ever spoken by human beings. So you can see and compare. And if you go, I'll go a little bit here, scroll down, the human brain's ability to store memories is estimated at about 2.5 petabytes. So that's our capacity as human being, our brain. So we're somewhere here. We can contain all US academic research libraries in our brain. We have that capacity. So we're created with that capacity. Okay, now we move on to the big data size. Well, according to some sources, approximately bytes we had in last year. So when it says zettabytes means what? Zettabytes means we had 10 to the power 24, right? So that's, you can imagine how big it is. So, but if the data can grow at the same rate as it is now, there will be 175 zettabytes by 2015, another 4 years or so. By 2015, approximately 463 exabytes would be created every day. This is every day. And even in 1919, which was a year before last year, per minute Google processed 3.7 million queries. Facebook saw 1 million logins per minute, I'm talking about. And YouTube had 4.5 million video views. We have a news in Australia today. Australian government has disputed with Facebook, and Facebook has decided to close all the news sites in Australia. So these powerful entities, technical companies, have so much power. I'll just mention them a bit more later on. So what do you start with? When I was a student, I didn't even see these things. No, when you these things, some of you will recognize, but the younger generation probably would not know what they are. But they were the champions of calculators or computers on those days. I'm talking about the 70s and 80s at that time. Now, before that, when I was a student, I used to use this machine to calculate in our practical class in the lab, in our BSc honors and master degree when we were doing that. And later on, then came the this mainframe computer, which was great. In between was some calculator, and then we had the PC, personal computer. Then you have laptop and tablet and so on and so forth. Now you have high-power supercomputers. So this is the way it has made life easier. Coupled with that high-power computing, we have now the internet, high-power internet. So that together has made a huge change in the world. So much so that data is everywhere. You can see even the family level. People are using, the three people in this side, they have iPad, iPhone, and an iPod, and the other poor guy had to pay for them. So that's another I paid. So everybody is creating data these days. Now, big data, who owns it? That's what I'm going to say. Facebook is one of those giant tech company that has so much data. It's unbelievable data that they have. And then have Twitter. Twitter have so much power, even they can ban United States president. And then LinkedIn, Instagram. It said there's a lot of these techno companies. And then Flickr, YouTube, WhatsApp messaging, the other messaging software as well. Any of the commercial loyalty credit cards, and you have amazing online shopping company like Amazon. And they have lots of data in them. Data gives them power. Data comes with the power. So, and also responsibility, also data challenge is now the security challenge that we are facing. The data is not safe in many cases. It's been hacked by other people. One government can hack another government record. It's not a crime. But if a citizen hack within the country to somebody else, that is a crime. So that's something inconsistency going on. Now, big data. Well, big data means what? Big data not only that it is a longitudinal big. It's got a lot of cases. It's got a lot of variables. When I say a lot of, means not 100 and 1,000, but millions. Big data has too many variables on very high dimension, and therefore it has also got the low quality data. The big data is uncleaned, unlike the usual data that we use in statistics or with IID and all the stationary condition and so on and so forth. Big data is not clean, so it is a big issue there. It has sometimes have different unit of measurement, different grades, different areas, different reasons, different definition of the same things. So all these things need to be cleaned up before you even think of analyzing the big data. And then you have to check for missing values, gap, repetition, overlapping, and so on and so forth. And then complexity, that you want to do classification and structure, and there may be correlation that you need to figure out. Security problem, I mentioned the compliance, integrity, and then problem of hacking. A lot of government office data nowadays being hacked. Australian Parliament was hacked last year, and there's always challenge going on because of the data availability in one place. Checking assumptions, making transformation, data cleaning, formatting is more challenging than data analysis. So big data has big challenges that we have to all face in reality. But it has got a lot of benefit. That's why we, regardless of the challenges, we have accepted that challenge, and we will have to make sense out of it. Now, when you go to big data, it's all in the cloud now. When you go to the cloud and crowdsourcing and so on and so forth, on the internet, nobody knows, you're a dog or whatever it is. So the cloud is now the data, and they are available, sharing the same data at the same time, doing analysis and sharing results from different parts of the world. So now I come to statistics and data science. Some people have talked about that. Well, data science, statistics has been there for many, many years now. And there was no time in the past where statistics was more appreciated and valued than it is now. Statistics has now taken its position more strongly and well recognized almost universally than anybody else, any other discipline. Statistics is a discipline that has entry to almost every discipline, particularly who are engaged in research. So we are part of solving problems, not only statistical problems, but also problems in the environment, in the health, in the atmosphere, in all of that, the business and government office and so on and so forth. So statistics has become so inevitable in everyday life these days. So the citizens need to be statistically educated these days, as they should be educated with the literature. That statistics sometimes is technology, some of them there. And this is, as I mentioned, requires independent sample, and then we need the second order stationary. So the statistics is a discipline that can help make decision in the face of uncertainty. Use data, produce, collect, analyze data, and then interpret the results and make it beneficial for the mankind. Without the statistics, the data it doesn't make sense. To make sense out of data, you need to use statistical methods. Data science is relatively new, so it also deals with data, of course, and it uses data mining, artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies to analyze big data and make sense out of it. Of course, it also uses statistical methods. I'm writing an article on this, and I hope the article will be included in the proceedings of the conference, and hopefully everybody will have access, those who are interested in this. This is an article from Edward Wigman, Edward Wigman is a very well strategist. He works in Mason University in the United States. And he said that I suggest that we want to be data centric. So he's a statistician by training that is developed methods which are motivated by data at hand, whether it fits standard models or not. So this is the challenge. I mean, if we do not take the challenge as a statistician, somebody else will take it. So that's why I think it is important that statistic people acquire the skill and ability to analyze data in the age of data revolution. If we don't do it, other people will take it over. So some of the things mentioned here are that the data mining, machine learning, so on. Now, most statistical methods taught are focused on the continuous and discrete numerical data models, but most useful applied methods focused on categorical data. So often the big data is actually classifying the data, find the correlation between the data, and find the structure in the data. So emerging data structure that is what is used in the big data analysis. So here's some comparison of the statistics on the left-hand side. So it's on the data science on the right-hand side, a small to moderate, a little bit, but big data is huge, and we need IRD stationary assumptions for statistics. The big data is not even homogeneous. It is statistical dimension low, one dimension, two dimension, three dimension. But in big data, high dimension, as I said, thousands. Non-parametric information is a distributed eruption. And then in the data science, you have weak or no assumptions, and then you got a closed form algorithms for statistics, and for the data science, it's imprecise questions, and you need to know imperative algorithm and use machine learning and artificial intelligence technique as well. Okay, cloud computing is a tech I mentioned before. All the resources, computing resources, our software. I mean, our university offers courses online for a long time, not just due to COVID. And we are teaching students online using online computers, so they can access online computer and then do their computing works. We are offering SPSS they can use through internet. This is a software package that used for computing. So they can use that online free of charges. So these are the way the world is moving. So we the technology has given this opportunity. And then in the remote location, but we have access to it, and people who need to access and analyze, they can analyze and share the data with the rest of the colleagues. They're working as a team. Now, the development of data revolution has created another new paradigm of science. This is a statement made by Edward Wegman in one of our ICCS conferences in Cairo in 2009. Traditionally, science has been built on two stage paradigm of theory and experiment. Theory guides experiment, experiment suggests development of theory. With the advent of powerful personal computers in the early 80s, a third stage was introduced, computation. By simulation, you could have other ways. So the computer gives us the ability to conduct experiment and come up with the theory. So the computation become another paradigm of science. Revolution, we have data is another new paradigm of science. Data science is another new paradigm of science. Now we have the data revolution experience. Acquiring massive data, in some sense, supplements theory, just as extent has supplemented the experiment. Example here, automatic translation needed the theory of natural languages with morphology, semantics, syntax, and lexicon in two languages. And Google Translate, if you go to Google Translate language to any other language. So if you analyze data in the two languages as Google does, simply matching multigrams in the two languages not only takes place of theory, but also neatly takes care of the idiomatic expressions. Now, introducing a new paradigm of science in addition to theory, experiment, computation, we have the fourth one. So that's what I may say that we are going through the data revolution, and that is that also changing the foundation of science. When big data, you need cloud, as I mentioned, and you need statistical methods, machine learning, and so on. The data mining is computer science and statistics combination, and the data mining is the process of finding anomalies, pattern, and correlations within large data sets to predict outcomes. And then artificial intelligence, constellations of technologies from machine learning, natural language processing that allows machines to sense, comprehend, act, and learn. And that's what is happening, and it is being used in the real life in many places. I'll mention some of them. I'm just skipping some of. So why we need statistics? This slide because if there is no error in the world and uncertainty in the world and variability in the world, we would not need statistics. But because the world is full of this error, uncertainty, and variability, we need statistical methods and techniques to make sense of errors, uncertainty, and variability. So statistics is unevitable as or living in the world of errors, uncertainty, and variability. Some of the contributions that statistics has made for the mankind, I just mentioned some of them here. It has changed the way the world think about. I have just given some photos here. Al-Kindi is the one who introduced the idea of frequency, the likelihood, maximum likelihood. He actually found out the frequency distribution of Arabic words. So, and then he tried to find a maximum, most frequently occurring word. So that's the maximum likelihood idea came from Al-Kindi, which is still used in statistics as a paradigm of statistical inference, out of maximum likelihood estimator, likelihood ratio test, and so on and so forth. And then Ibn Sina, he was a giant in medical science. His book was taught in the Western universities more than 500 years as a textbook in medicine. And then Al-Khwarizmi is a legendary mathematician who introduced the idea of the algorithm and the Arabic alphabet, Arabic numerals that we use today. The contribution of these people has led to, if there's no algorithm, there won't be any computer. There won't be any Google search these days. Okay, so I'm just going to be trying to be more precise now. So how we are reshaping? When reshaping the society, the industry that I mentioned here, they are using data and artificial intelligence and internet to transform the transport industry. You've probably heard of the driverless car and driverless delivery vehicle and so on and so forth. They are all based on the technology that requires data, artificial intelligence, internet, and so on and so forth. Business, you can shop from your home. So much shopping and marketing data available. Healthcare system has a lot of data, and they're now in the healthcare with digital health. Yes, I don't need to go to see my GP, my doctor. I can phone and get advice if the thing is not so serious. People in the remote areas, countries like Canada and Australia, there's a huge vast land, and people are isolated. This digital health, telehealth has made a tremendous difference for them. And this is because of the technology that has provided us. Communication industry, starting from telephone to Facebook to messaging and so on and so forth. And as I mentioned, that it has created the confidentiality and privacy problem and hacking as well. Now I mentioned about the reshaping of science already, so I'll just skip that. Now there's some example of what's happening with the data revolution. Fully automated truck. This is from the United States. This has there's no driver, no helper, nothing. So it's fully automatic. It will carry items and deliver from one place to another. And this is the delivery operations vehicle that will bring your shopping items to your home. There's no driver, nothing. All artificial intelligence and data. And this is a driverless bus that Queensland trialed on the road. Again, we have seen the driverless monorail in Kuala Lumpur, LRT, but now it's a bus. So, and then you have this one is very recent. Amazon is going to use drone to deliver items from one city to another, maybe one country to another as well. So Amazon has invested billions of dollars in this technology, and they will save much more than what they have invested. So this is already in the process. And then if you go to Sweden, there are thousands of Sweden people. They have this microchip on their under their skin, and they can enter their homes, offices, gyms, and pay their bills using that, just touching that finger where there's chips there under the skin, so they don't have to carry any keys. They don't forget their keys anymore. Anyway, so this is for the evidence-based decision making using the data, particularly meta-analysis and systematic review. As an example of that, forest plot that can combine multiple studies happen all over the world together and synthesize the result to come up with a conclusion based on the combined results from independent studies. That gives us the bigger sample size and higher power. Now, because statistics and data is so powerful people want to use it, and sometimes they abuse it, and most of the time probably they abuse it. Here's an example that people wanted to take away the facts in the name of the fake news or alternative facts. And that's, if you see the slide, is very strongly mentioned over there that the facts are stubborn things that are not going to change because some people want it to change. Okay, so John Adams' statement is very powerful. And then so much power. I'll just give you an example. In 2012, just before the US presidential election, in October, the main issue in the election was the unemployment rate. And the unemployment rate was above 8%, as you can see. But all of a sudden, the September quarter result published in October, just a month before the election, it went below 8%, 7.8% actually. And that was make and break for President Obama to be reelected. And that's what made him actually reelected, so much power. So opposition party, of course, tried to blame that this number was cooked, but the US Bureau of Labor Statistics denied, and they said if there is an iota of influence from White House or any of the Obama campaign, they will, all the officers in the US Bureau of Labor Statistics will resign together from their positions. So that was a very strong decision. And Stephen Hogan said that flatly dismissed the idea that there is any way the White House or our campaign could have had a hand in how the numbers turn out. The data are not manipulated for political reasons. I have been involved in this process myself. There's never been any political manipulation of data, period. And this is the kind of independence, objectivity that we need. Because if the public doesn't have trust on the government data, what's the point of creating the data? So the public's trust has to be earned. And that is absolutely in the hard core of statistics. If we are not objective, we are not independent of influence, political influence, or influence from the powerful people, we're going to lose our trustworthiness and our statistics at large. How you abuse statistics is another example of this. Just before the Brexit election,
Dr. Shah Jahan, sorry I'm interrupting you, but we are really short of time. It is
okay,
so
I'll just finish now. Just another slide that this person claimed that 81% of the white Americans killed by the black. When he was challenged and checked, it was only 15%. So people are abusing statistics more than anything else. So my time is finished. So I'm going to just share with you that statistics has the power to expose the corruption as well. This is the corruption index of the world. You can see the black and the red parts are the worst, and the blue and green parts are better. So we live in Australia, it's not too bad, but New Zealand is much better compared to others. And I just want to share with this, if you're interested in meta-analysis or systematic review, this book may be helpful, and that's ways of analyzing multidisciplinary data by using the meta-analysis technique. Thank you again. I hope to see you in another occasion, and if you have any questions, bye.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shah Jahan. It was again a very enlightening talk, as you always do. I think we just simply now don't have time for questions because of the time shortage, but I'm sure that everybody here in the hall has benefited from your talk, Dr. Shah Jahan.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Any questions?
Uh, no, Dr. Shahjahan, we are not
Okay.
having questions now. Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. इसको ये वो यहाँ से छोड़। Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the invited talk by Associate Professor Enriqueta Reston. And before I invite her to start her presentation, I would like to give you some idea about her achievements. She is professor at the School of Education at the University of San Carlos, Cebu City, Philippines. She teaches graduate courses in educational assessment and evaluation, quantitative research designs, research instrumentation, advanced educational statistics, multivariate data analysis, etc. She's the dean at the School of Education. And now I don't have time to read all of these, but you can have a look, and you can, of course, Google her and find out more about her numerous publications, including books, as you can see, and so many conference presentations. It's a long list, so many grants that she has received. Uh, and it just goes on and on. She's a member and past vice president of the International Association for Statistical Education, also an elected member of the ISI. All right, I think I need to skip the rest of it and now invite her to start her talk on the following topic: exploring the potentialities of learning analytics in modeling relationships between students' course learning experiences and faculty teaching performance in online learning environments. Over to you, Enriqueta.
Thank you, Dr. Saleha. And good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from the Philippines. And it's early evening in our part of the world. It's about 6 o'clock. So thank you also for the opportunity to share with you my work on evaluation performance using learning analytics in the university. So let me first share my screen. Okay. So when Dr. Saleh invited me on this one, this is actually on this in this conference. This is actually still a work in progress, but I may just want to share with you, especially for those of you who are in the academe like me, because we see that statistics moving to data science and particular to educational data science, no, have been widely used now in business intelligence coming from data science, big data science. But I see that in education, especially in our part in our country, it has not yet been widely used. So I want to move to push forward towards that. Okay, so that's the title, or I shortened it to using learning analytics. At first, we were still exploring it, no, the possibility. Okay, so all of us have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and the remote teaching and learning, no, and flexible learning has been our response to the challenge of learning continuity and sustainability. So before, we used to have face-to-face teaching, although there were already ICT in support to face-to-face teaching. We were doing blended learning, face-to-face plus plus online before the pandemic, but it was only during the pandemic that we were pushed, no, at least for our case in the university, in our university, we were pushed to go fully online. So with this, or okay, so this is the e-learning continuum. But before this happened in March or February when the pandemic was declared, there was already the plan of our university to move into revision of our faculty evaluation system. And so I started the project in January before the pandemic, that we want to develop a new, because there's an existing one that we developed way back 2008, so it's more than 10 years ago. And we want to develop a new multidimensional faculty evaluation system that takes into consideration now the course learning analytics and evaluation of teacher performance from students, peer, administrators. And I added this now in online learning environment, because when we started the project, it wasn't meant to be in a fully online environment. So now we added this component, and we look at our university with its units, the schools, the departments. And by the way, there is a committee on this, and I just head the committee on this one, on this project. And we look at the system, because we see it's a multidimensional and it's a system. And we have our 7 schools, 27 departments, and many programs and courses, thousands of courses, and we have more than 100 programs. And the stakeholders here are the administrators, the faculty, and the students. We have our own faculty evaluation instrument this time, with 5 components from 4 sources of data. So this was what we have thought of before, when that was way back in 2007, 2008. And we followed a model. We reviewed the literature, and we followed a model for this one, with 4 sources of data. But currently, with going fully online, we adopted a learning management system. We used Canvas, and there are learning analytics in Canvas. There's some measure of course experience that the students, there's a checklist of course experience, which we converted to points from experience. There are course statistics, data analytics in Canvas on the number of discussions, assignments, the number of interactions of the students, and course outcomes. And course outcomes here are the scores of the students in the different summative assessments, including the course grades. So we want to propose a new set of evaluation instruments and system that exploits now educational data science. And we reviewed the literature as well on the connections of evaluation of teaching and the student learning in higher education. And we see that educational evaluation has now expanded, not only focusing on student assessment, as we know, but the appraisal of teachers and school leaders that have been there before. But what is new here, or the new expansion, is the use of performance data. Whereas before we were relying on perceptions of students, faculty, and peer on the performance of faculty, we now have hard performance data from our learning management system. And we want to also to take, no, this is from the literature review that we had, that we want to take a holistic approach to evaluation, that to achieve its fullest potential, the various components of assessment and evaluation should form a coherent whole, and we can generate synergies between components, avoid duplication, and prevent inconsistencies. Also, we want to align our assessment and evaluation with the institutional goals and the focus on student learning outcomes towards improvement. So that evaluation system is not just meant to judge faculty performance as basis for ranking and tenure, because that has been the tradition we held in our university. It's very the data has not been used that match with the students at the center. So this is in the direction that we want to go, that we want to achieve. And this is with literacy assessment from OECD. we now also look into educational data science. So I have been looking into the literature as well. See that it is an emergent disciplinary field. While data science is more matured in general, educational data science is considered emergent interdisciplinary field of inquiry, which brings together computer science, education, and statistics and other social sciences, no, statisticians as well here, I have not included, to examine and understand social and technical phenomena. Big data is important. So according to one author here, big data and learning analytics comprise data science. So we can imagine the big data. I've been imagining the big data in our university when we have more than 10,000 students, 600 courses, 600 faculty, more than 1,000 courses, and these are all interacting. And every semester, the data is changing. So we have here large volume, variety, and velocity of students' data, which will enable researchers to work on it with large number of students. And of course, learning analytics are now embedded in our learning management system, aside from other sources. And we examine the challenge of collecting, analyzing, and reporting data with specific intent on improving student learning. Embedded, we want to achieve an embedded digital ecosystem. We're working with our faculty in statistics and computer science towards a university and system-wide approach to data and learning analytics. And the goal is to improve teaching and student outcomes. However, there are really ethical considerations we have to pursue. So when we started this project and wanted to ask for the data, it was really a struggle for us because of so many restrictions, ethical considerations. Like we have, I have to convince the administrators to look into this respect privacy of students. We need students' consent of their data, and also we need to safeguard stewardship and protection of the data. And there are also benefits and potential risks when we use student data to look at teaching performance of faculty. And who makes the decision on the results of the evaluation? So these are really some concerns on the ethical consideration. It was very hard for us to pull the data. Especially in the Philippines, we have the Data Privacy Act. And we have to convince that we're using the data with full confidentiality. We do not present individual results and respect privacy and so on. And also the main goal is really to improve student teaching and student learning and teaching practice. So it's really a waste of so much data lying there in this information management system. No? Okay, so these are the sources of data, the instruments, and the variables that we have worked so far over the past months. And we did some revision when the pandemic came and we had to look into the online use of a learning management system as well. So we have we designed student evaluation of course learning experiences and outcomes. I really spearheaded this. Learning management system Canvas has its own course experience checklist as well. So it is standard there, it is embedded there. But we found that it's more technical. It's really more on what the teacher is doing with the technology. So we made researcher made or developed committee made student evaluation of course learning experiences and outcomes. And I'll yeah, the variables are down here. This is also based on the literature review, course planning and design, teaching quality, student learning assessment, and student outcomes were defined operationally, but we were guided by literature. Then in our learning management system, there are the core statistics data on specifics on the number of interactions and discussions, assignments, and so on. And the course outcomes, as I've mentioned. Now, we also now require, we move towards this teaching portfolio from our teachers. And we also require that as a pedagogical stage and teaching and learning, whatever publications, disseminations they have done on their teaching practice and their professional engagement and professional leadership and development. So this is hard data from a portfolio, but it is more qualitative data like samples of teachers' work, uh, syllabus, and sample tests. And so we have a rubric. So the rubric is our weighted structured activities. And does a the teacher herself, himself does an evaluation, self-evaluation, but it is also triangulated by the peer and administrator. So the administrators and the peer have the same instrument. There is an evaluation of faculty performance by administrator and peer, which is parallel to the one used by students for triangulation. And there is the portfolio, which is really hard data because the evaluation instrument could be based on perception and observation. So actually, for the instrument on students course learning experiences and outcomes, we started with more than 70 items and we pilot tested it during the first semester because we were already fully online on Canvas. And we found four factors. We started actually from the literature. The literature had so many ways of looking at faculty performance measuring, and we tried to put them together. And the factors we identified are course planning and design, or course design, and the teaching quality in an online learning environment is also defined with indicators, the student learning assessments, the quality of the assessments, and the student outcomes as measured by the results of assignments and quizzes. And we found that based on the data, the reliability is high, and this is just a pilot test. I sorry, and the number of items are there. So what I am sharing with you here is the potentiality of the data. I first look at explore the data that can be gathered, like by schools. I look at the dispersion of the data from the box plots by schools. Here, architect, so on. So this can guide administrators on the variability of students' ratings on their faculty performance. By the way, 250 faculty members were, it's a sample that we use for pilot testing. And here is the Canvas total. Here is the Canvas learning course experience rating. No, so this is a standard instrument used by the LMS. Students' evaluation of their experience, their perception, and you see they are close to each other. A scale from 45. Okay, here, and you see from the data, a picture of the data, you see that who has the best performance over the different categories. And you see that from the means and the dispersion. So like School of Business have the from the highest and the lowest rating is quite high. And education and healthcare profession, the ratings are more clustered, more consistent. So this has implications. So we are also educating our administrators like the dean to look at the data from a collective perspective. And there are also specifics on the course experience, like course design. Where do your students, where do the teachers how do the teachers fare with compared to the others? But I cannot go on with all the details for the limited time. And we also look at by departments, because usually in our case we have 27 departments and there are several departments in one college. So we can also see some outliers and the spread, like engineering and architecture and this is Department of Architecture, but there's also the School of Architecture and Fine Arts. So we see the clustering of the students' ratings, and we also see the relationships later of peer and administrators ratings. How consistent are they across the schools that we have and across departments? So we see here some consistency in the spread of the data using the box plots. And I also tried to do a scatter plot to see if there is really a relationship between the course experience of the students as measured by the learning management system and the perception of the students as measured by the ratings in our researcher developed instrument. And so we have the Canvas total experience here on the x-axis, and we have the student total experience. I just reported total, but there are details on this for the different constructs. And you see here the clustering that it is indicative of a strong relationship towards that these are highly correlated, the course experience and the ratings, which could be a source also of validating the outcomes. So actually, we are still building the model. We're exploring those learning analytics, and there are really details, but because of also of the confidentiality of the data on students' performance, I cannot present to you everything, but I'm just giving you the big picture or the idea. And I end with these recommendations that students' evaluation of teaching in online courses may be validated through the learning analytics produced in the learning management system. And also, we want to use this data to inform and improve teaching, to serve as basis for planning and continuing professional development of teachers, and in faculty evaluation for ranking and promotions. And learning analytics also need to be triangulated by data from peer and administrators rating, as well as the use of the teaching portfolio. So the student teachers also make an electronic portfolio. And there is the need for higher education institutions, particularly in our part of the country. This may be already advanced in other parts in the West and in Pakistan or wherever. But in our country, uh, I really see the potentiality of the data in the universities, but it is just sleeping. It is not used for decision making and improving teaching practice and student outcomes. So I recommend this, the need for developing educational data science skills for the faculty. It's the implication here is also for human resource faculty and student teachers, and for continuous improvement of teaching practice and achieving the educational goals of an institution. So that's all, and thank you for this opportunity to share our ongoing project.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank,
Okay.
thank you very much. Not only do we have people in the hall, but we also have online a number of persons who are attending this session. So if anybody has any question, please go ahead. May you be online or may
Okay.
you be in the hall. Ms. Baliga, do you have a question? All right. Anybody from those out of those who are online? Ms. Sadia, do you have a question or any comment? The next one, because we have 3 more speakers. I will try to share my slides. Wasim, could you help me?
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next talk is by Assistant Professor Dr. Olawale Au from Nigeria. I would like to request the people in the hall to please be quiet because there is some disturbance. And I would like to now share with you, ladies and gentlemen, that Olawale is working at the Anchor University Laboratory for Interdisciplinary Statistical Analysis, Anchor University, Lagos, Nigeria. And he's a statistician and researcher with strong analytical skills and applied statistician, data scientist, strongly interested in applying his expertise to various, all these different projects, interested in goals, achievement goals. Okay, his education profile you can see. His PhD is from the University of Ibadan in Nigeria. And prior to that, he did an MBA, and the rest of it you can read. His employment profile is, as you can see. His postdoctoral fellowship was at the Virginia Polytechnic Institute and the United States of America. All right, he's also the Lisa Fellow. Lisa, some of you may be knowing about it. I know that my colleague, Dr. Asifa Kamal at Lahore College for Women University, she is also associated with Lisa. Accomplishments and awards. And there are a number of publications, as you can see. The title, ladies and gentlemen, of this talk is Bayesian Dynamic Regression of Climate Data, a Change Point Analysis. Over to you, Olawale. Please go ahead. Is he here? Yeah. I think he is not connected. I don't see the icon. Maybe there's some internet problem, just like we are having right here. Okay, there's a message from him. Is it possible to reschedule me? What time exactly am I coming? Laura is very much here and Kevin is very much. I will proceed to Laura. Yeah, thank you, Laura. I can read your message as well. She just wrote that I can talk now. And then after that, we have Dr. Kevin Keane. And if any time we have after that, and it is possible for Olawale to connect with us then I would definitely want him to do that. But now I want to share my slides so that I can talk about the professional profile of Laura Martignan. Yes, I'll just hold on, Laura. I'll be just now requesting you. Hanji, just give me a second. So, इसको कर यहाँ कर All right, ladies and gentlemen, now have Professor Laura Martignan. So she is at this moment in time professor at the Institute for Mathematics and Computer Science at the Ludwigsburg University of Education in Ludwigsburg in Germany. And she's a Colombian and Italian professor and scientist. Since 2003, she serves as a professor of mathematics here at Ludwigsburg and was until 2017 an adjunct scientist of the Max Planck Institute for Human Development in Berlin, where she previously worked as senior researcher. She also worked for 10 years as a mathematics professor at the University of Brasilia and spent a period of 1.5 years at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem with a research grant of the Israeli government. She obtained her bachelor's degree at Universidad Nacional de Colombia in Bogota in 1971, a master's degree in mathematics in 1975, and then graduated as a doctor. Please accept my apologies, Laura, if I cannot pronounce all the things properly. And people can read your profile also. She obtained her M. Quadramento tenure at the University of Brasilia in 1984 and her German habilitation in neuroinformatics at the University of Ulm, Germany in 1998. There's a lot here, and I think I can read this one. Her recent, excuse me, if you could please maintain some silence, I'll be grateful. It is being recorded. All right, I'll continue. Her recent contributions have been in probabilistic reasoning, decision making, and their connections with mathematics education. In 1995, she was one of the founding members of the ABC Center for Adaptive Behavior and Cognition, directed by Gerd Gigerenzer, first in Munich at the Max Planck Institute for Psychological Research, and then in Berlin at the Max Planck Institute for Human Development. All right, maybe later on you can read her profile because there's a lot. She has also done research on gender in mathematics education, leading a project on the topic at her university and founding the review journal Mathematics and Gender. For a period of 6 years, she was the representative of the working group Frauen and Mathematik of the German Society of Mathematics Education. Ladies and gentlemen, the title of the talk is Boundedly Rational Decision Making Under Uncertainty. Over to you, Laura. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I need you to open my camera. It says that the host should let me in. So I ask you please to open my camera. Do you see me?
Okay, we are trying to do that.
Thank you.
Actually, I was able to see you earlier. Something went wrong.
Yes, something
I think
happened. Something happened.
Yeah,
it is
right.
So I can try to start, but okay, here. Do you see me now? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for all that text that you read about me. I am very, very moved and happy to be with you. And I thank you for the invitation. I also thank the other speakers who have given such interesting talks. My talk is a bit more conceptual. I will be talking about bounded rationality, and let me explain what I mean by that. Let me see if I make it here. Here. I have a crazy presentation. I work a lot on education, and I teach future teachers. So one of my concerns is to present things in innovative ways. So this is a presentation that I prepared on the topic of bounded rationality. And the first thing, of course, is to tell you what it is about. What is bounded rationality? So let us see. The topic of decision making is a very important one nowadays. It is at least 1 century that people talk about methodologies for decision making. How do we make decisions? Is this the way we make decisions? I will show you some candidates. For instance, if you want to buy a car, you need a lot of information, perhaps. You need a lot of alternatives, and you evaluate, and you make at some point your purchasing decision. And then you make a post-purchase evaluation. This is one of the models typical for instance, purchasing of items. Another way to approach rationality is the traditional medieval ideal in Europe of fides and ratio, which means faith and reasoning should be combined. And you see here an illustration of a deity, using compass to delimitate and create the world. So then we have the important philosopher Descartes, who decided that ratio and rationalism should be separated from faith and should be ruled simply by the rules of logic. So inference should be ruled by logic and decision making. But he does talk about decision. He says the requires think logically. Then we have the very important intervention of Laplace in the history of decision making. He said rationality, logic, and probability. So he adds to the inference done by classical logic probability to deal with uncertainty. Then we have, of course, the appearance of the Homo economicus, and we have heard today in the talk, how do people risks, etc., when they have to deal with financial decisions. This is here a little bit of a comic illustration. Homo economicus actually wants, in theory, to maximize his or her utilities. This is an optimizing concept. You want to maximize, optimize your conditions, etc. But are we real optimizers? Do we optimize in our day-to-day decisions, or is optimizing just a theoretical construct? We have Herbert Simon. Herbert Simon was both a psychologist and an economist. He won the Nobel Prize for Economy. And he postulated the theory that we are actually no optimizers in our day-to-day affairs. We can become optimizers, theoretical, with the instruments of science, but actually we are satisficers. And satisfice melts the word satisfy and suffice. That is, we are happy with just good enough solutions. We look for good enough solutions with which we can live and continue our life. And he defended this and introduced the concept of bounded rationality. Bounded rationality is not rationality in the sense of total optimization, but is a rationality with restricted conditions of informations and of means for decision making. So we need, in order to use bounded rationality, the concepts of risk. And we heard something about risk in financial decision making. And I have now here a model based on 4 components for risk literacy. I wrote a book with a colleague of mine on risk literacy for youngsters and children. And here are those components that we consider important when we have to make decisions under risk and uncertainty. I would like to recall the differentiation between risk and uncertainty of Frank Knight. Risk is uncertainty when you do know the probabilities, like when you have a die, you know the probabilities of each side. And uncertainty is when you don't even know the probabilities of the events you're dealing with. So, excuse me, are you seeing my my presentation, or are you only seeing my face?
No,
Saleha.
no, we can see your presentation
Oh, good,
very
good,
much.
good. Thank you, thank you.
Right.
Okay, so you see here these scaffolding risk literacy, and on top of all, you have to be able to detect risk. Sometimes people overdo it. Sometimes people are too afraid and see risks everywhere. So detecting risk means assessing the correct risks, which is of course very difficult. You know, to have the objectively correct vision of risk is a very difficult thing, but we should be able to not exaggerate and not diminish risks and detect them in the right measure. The next step is to analyze risks. So for analyzing risks, humans, we all have extract features of situations. If a child has fever, we think the child is ill. If a woman has a positive mammography test, the doctor thinks there is some probability that she may have breast cancer, etc. So we humans are good at generating features, qualities, characteristics of situations, which we can analyze and assess in order to establish the risks of these situations. Then the next step, once we have analyzed risk, and for that we need some instruments, the next step is, of course, dealing with trade-offs. I will give you an example of, based on a study that we made with children. You can offer a child in Germany. A child gets in the week something like 4 to 5 euros per week for his daily little purchases. So you can tell the child, and this is what we did. Okay, you get 5 euros per week, but we could change that. Your mother could change that, and you could throw a coin at the beginning of the week every Monday. And if it comes heads, you get 20 euros. But if it comes out tails, you get 0. So what do you prefer? To have your 5 euros fixed sum every week, or to throw the coin every week and get 20 if heads comes, or 0 if tails comes? So here it is this dealing with trade-offs, and we discovered that girls are more conservative than boys already in 4th class. Girls in tendency said, I prefer to keep my 5 euros rather than go to this, situation of uncertainty and risk, and perhaps be with 0 euros per week if I am unlucky. So that is, the topic of dealing with trade-offs, which is very, very important. I will not be talking too much about that today. And once all this has been done, analyzing risk and dealing with trade-offs, the big important step comes of crossing the Rubicon. It is a metaphor of, a river that Caesar had to cross in order to proceed in his actions, a general in the Roman times. And so the Rubicon is the moment when you make your decision and act. So that is the last step. Okay, for analyzing risks, we have developed an instrument that I will show you now. So I open the page. It's a little bit difficult to open that link. I will open it here directly. Where is the risk? So what is the meaning of this page here? This was elaborated by someone, some of you know, Tim Erickson. And one of the topics which I said is important is to, to explain the power of features, how trustworthy is a feature. We saw now in the discussions about COVID that people were very interested in understanding the sensitivity of tests and the predictive value of tests. If you get a positive COVID test, what is the probability that you do have the disease? This is an important topic at the moment. If you get a negative test, can you be sure that you're healthy? Or what is the probability? That is called the specificity of the test. So in order to explain these things to children, please assume that you're now children or youngsters, we use very simple. We use here, you see cats and dogs, and some of these animals are wearing a bell, are carrying a bell. Children think that it's actually cats who have a bell, but here you also have some dogs having bells. And one thing, the beginning of statistics, we say, is when you sort out your data. So we put all the bells here together. If you look at this scene, you would, the question is, you ask, how sensitive and how specific and how predictive is wearing a bell? If you see, if I tell you that I saw an animal from this population wearing a bell, would you bet it is a cat? In other words, what is the predictive value of bell in this population? It is not very high, but you can change things here. Let's see whether I can change. I can have more cats. I can change the so-called base rate of cats. Now I have, for instance, more cats. And now with this distribution, if I tell you I saw someone, so an animal carrying a bell, you would tend to bet that it is a cat because you see here the probability is 3 out of 5. You can also change the size of the population, etc. And you can use a tree, a double tree, in fact, for again describing your situation statistically in terms of this hierarchical arrangement. You have 20 pets, 12 cats, 8 dogs, 6 cats with bell, 4 dogs with bell, etc., etc. So you can go to a slightly more sophisticated example. Here it's HIV. It's not COVID, it's HIV, but it's also an interesting topic also for youngsters. You can here, as you see, change the population, and you can change the base rate of HIV, and you can group together. Here the red ones are those who have the disease, and you see here those who test positive with a plus, and there are some healthy guys testing positive. That is always the problems of test. And you have some positive people who have the disease and test negative, that is the minus signs. And here again, you can work with a tree and represent the situation here with this double tree, having the different numbers describing the situation, and you can become more sophisticated in your level of abstraction and sophistication, in the sense of having, for instance, now a sampling from a huge population. And here you can go to the icon array, which is this kind of representation, or to the tree, and you can resample each time and choose new samples from a huge population. So this is one of the things in this page. You also want to understand, and you want youngsters to understand, what we mean by risk reduction. Here, a very simple example, using helmets is important, and we want children and youngsters to understand that the risk reduction is quite high. Here you see some children who fell, and the question is, who have a wounding, or or curity pad because they have an injury. So again, here you can group those who are helmets together, and you see, out of those who have an injury, here only one sorry, of those who fall, only one has a severe injury of those who have a helmet, and 3 have an injury of those who are not wearing a helmet. So you learn about the risk reduction, in this case, of 3 out of 5 to 1 out of 5 if you're wearing a helmet. And it's important to understand the difference between relative risk reduction, as in this case, or absolute risk reduction. Okay. So another topic is something about conjunction, which is one of the topics in probability which brings problems to people making judgments. I will not talk too much about that. Some of you may know the problem of the conjunction fallacy. And let me now go back. Oh, sorry. I want to go back to this here. So I showed you the page which we use with children and youngsters, and now we go to the making decisions. So based on features, you see, based on a positive test, a positive COVID test, or other symptoms, you have to take a decision, make a decision, and act. I want to give you the example of doctors judging whether a patient had to go to the hospital in this present COVID-19 situation here in Germany. So what the doctors looked at, so the doctor came to your house, for instance, this was the case in this house. Doctor comes to the house and looks at the patient, and if the patient has severe breathing symptoms, if he has difficulties breathing, immediately hospital. If the patient does not have breathing problems, but it has a low oxygen saturation under 80, if none of these two features are present, so neither difficulties in breathing nor low saturation, but a very high oxygen saturation, depending on the pressure to bring the patient to the hospital. In the cases, if these features are not present, the patient remains at home. So we had this experience. So you see, it is a very simple way of making decisions. And one of the messages of bounded rationality is that when you have a situation of pressure with little information, and you have to decide, then quite often the methods you use are not heavily on this definition of fast and frugal trees. I will show you an example here. This is another example. A patient comes to the hospital and has severe coronary care unit or regular bed. Well, you see, the doctor looks at the electrocardiogram, and the electrocardiogram again has several features. For instance, there is something called the ST segment, which could be elevated. Immediately, the patient is declared as high risk and sent to the coronary care unit. If it's not elevated, then the doctor looks at other symptoms. Is chest pain the main symptom? If yes, the doctor looks at other important symptoms, and if there is one of a list of 4 other symptoms, sent to the coronary care unit. If chest pain is not a main symptom, the patient is declared as low risk and sent to the regular bed. If chest pain is a main symptom, but there are no other symptoms, the tendency is again to send the patient to the regular bed. So this is a fast and frugal tree, and this kind of trees, which is there is a decision, and you use just the features of the situation and a ranking. The important thing is how to rank these value, positive, predictive value, some other and some other trees through. There is a book just appeared on classification in wild, written by the group Renzer, the Max Planck Institute for Psychological Research, that talks about several methods for creating trees. Most important thing is what I want to show you to end my talk. How good are fast and he fast exact method using value and negative predictive value, or and maximal validity. It's not logistic regression and it's not CART. This training set does 76% correct, and the zigzag fast and frugal does 70%. Have advantages and are very good in 90% set, and it means the strong quite well, even in large training sets. So the moral, the message of this graph is that if you have a small training set, which is the case, for instance, when patients are analyzed, the COVID situation, and doctors have to make decisions. At the beginning, they have very small training sets, then very simple fast and frugal trees are extremely robust and predictive. Okay, so this is my story, and I finish here, and I hope that you will ask questions concerning the bounded rationality issue. All these models, the fast and frugal trees, and also tallying, which is just counting features, belong to the boundedly rational models for decision making. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. That was great. But I must share with you that we were losing your voice here in the hall in the last part of your talk because we are, unfortunately, today we are having quite a lot of internet issue. However, it is, I mean, in the first part, we were able to hear you quite well. And it's
Okay.
very interesting. Thank you so much. Um, I think this concept of bounded rationality is very much unfamiliar here in Pakistan. I would like to request the audience to let me know, is this correct? Do we have a bounded rationality concept here? No, we don't actually. So it was something very enlightening and something very new for people here. But I would like to ask, I wonder whether some of the other invited speakers, for example, Kevin, if you have a question or a comment, maybe you can go ahead with that. You can, do you want to continue sharing your slide, Laura, or do you want to?
Yes, yes. Do you hear me now? Are you hearing me?
Yes, now we are hearing you.
Oh,
Now,
so was it my fault? Maybe it was my fault. Oh dear.
No, I could hear you very clearly, Laura.
Okay,
So
thank you.
yeah, so I think the problem's the connection between the Zoom data center in the United States and Lahore.
Okay.
so, Kevin, go ahead with your question. I'm sure you can put good questions to Laura. And
Thank
we
you.
are here in order to learn whatever as much as we can learn.
Yeah, so we have the zigzag method there. Would you like to comment on the naive Bayes method, which seemed to be best in all situations of the three scenarios you presented?
Yes, all right. So maybe some of you may have worked, of course, regression is one of the dominating models in medical decision making. You know, it's a traditional method here. But regression, as you saw in my graph, the logistic regression is quite strong if you have a large training set. So you are in a hospital, 3,000. You know, we did studies with data coming from at least 3,000 patients in a Michigan hospital. And if you have a large training set, logistic regression is very strong, but naive Bayes is even stronger. So what is naive Bayes? Naive Bayes is you estimate the probability that the patient has the disease, suppose COVID-19, given that he has a positive result on this test, that other test, that other test, has that symptom, that other symptom. And now the Bayesian would say, okay, these features, how do I look at them? They could be interrelated. There could be conditional dependencies between them. And there is a very famous way of looking at this, the Bayesian network. And the Bayesian network is modeling these features so that we look at the conditional dependencies between features and between feature and criterion. The criterion is, does the patient have the disease given that his fever is high, his ST segment is elevated, etc. So the Bayesian network represents a network of these features looking at possible dependencies. Naive Bayes is the simplest of these possible networks where you assume, and that is an assumption that of course is not true, but you make the assumption anyway, that you have conditionally independent features. which is of course not true. For instance, if you have a positive mammography test as a woman, then probably there is a sonar sign, or how do you call it? Oh, sorry, I cannot speak English. So if you have a positive mammography, it is probably interconnected or dependent on a tissue amplification, etc. So these things are usually conditional dependent, but the naive Bayes assumption is let's neglect those. Let's neglect those dependencies between the features and just consider the dependency of the criterion. Do you have breast cancer, or does the patient need to go to the coronary care unit given his electrocardiogram? Just look at the features, assuming that they are conditionally independent between them, and just look at the dependency of the criteria. So this is the naive Bayes. The naive Bayesian forgets or neglects dependencies between features. And it is the strongest model, as you see. And I like to consider naive Bayes one of the strongest heuristics, also boundedly rational.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Any further comment from you, Kevin?
No, thank you, Laura, for that succinct and clear explanation of the naive Bayes approach to networks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now proceed to the next talk, and that is by Professor Kevin Keane. I would like to share my slides. If you, Dr. Wasim, can you help me with that?
नहीं है ना
नहीं इससे अगली है ये तो बड़ी क्यों नहीं हो रही ये तो हिली है निकाल दे वैसे ही कर लेते हैं
कौन सा नंबर है
ये वाली है ना इनका मैंने पहले बायो डेटा बताना है ये बड़ा नहीं हो सकता ये बड़ा क्यों नहीं हो रहा ये उनको दिख रहा है okay, I think you are able to see my slide. Is that correct? Kevin,
Yep.
can you see? Okay,
Yep.
all right.
We can see in here.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Kevin Keane is professor in the Department of Mathematics and Statistics, University of Northern British Columbia in Canada. So he has held visiting appointments with the Department of Medicine at the University of British Columbia. Now, UBC is different from UNBC, of course. Netherlands Institute for Health Sciences, Erasmus University, Rotterdam, and the Faculty of Medicine at Leiden University. He has published more than 30 peer-reviewed articles in journals, 2 book chapters, and 2 editions of a textbook on statistical graphics. His research involves the development of novel statistical techniques and cutting-edge computer software for the analysis of data in the study of complex diseases. He is the co-author of articles on lung and skin involvement in scleroderma. Dr. Keane is accredited as a professional statistician, PStat, by both the Statistical Society of Canada and the American Statistical Association. Also, he is a fellow of the Royal Statistical Society. The title of Kevin's talk today is Short Range Forecasting of Daily Counts of COVID-19 cases globally by statistical modeling. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that I know personally that Kevin has been actively engaged in this research work connected with COVID-19. So he actually has a lot that all of us can learn from, lot to share with you in this area, which is one of the current everybody is talking about COVID-19 all the time. So go ahead, Kevin, with your talk.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And if you'll unshare screen, I will share screen.
Yes, you may not.
Okay. I'm hoping everybody can see that.
Yes.
Great.
Yes,
okay.
we can.
I also have a second affiliation with the Center for Heart and Lung Innovation at Providence Healthcare Research Institute, St. Paul's Hospital in Vancouver, British Columbia. And yes, UBC and UNBC are two different universities. Well, there is a little bit of overlap. This is going to be the outline for my presentation. I'm going to do a brief slide on disclosure. And then I'm going to talk about the need for short-range forecasting of daily counts of COVID-19 cases. Then discuss the data source that I've been using for doing this. The rationale for statistical modeling versus other alternatives that are there. And then we'll take a look at a statistical model. And then we'll break away and I will show you what the process is like when you're using statistical software to actually use the model and refine it and get it ready for forecasting. And then I'll conclude with acknowledgements. And I'm sure there'll be time for questions as well too. So there's my presenter disclosure. So let's talk about the need for short-range forecasting of daily counts of COVID-19 cases. Public health officials and healthcare managers need daily counts of COVID-19 cases for their region, and if possible for 4 weeks in the future as well, and bi-weekly or weekly updates if the situation is rapidly worsening. With global air travel and widespread surface movement of travelers, the following is needed on a global scale. We need to have tracking of trends and daily accounts, and we need to have forecasts for the future. Now, the data source that I've been using since January of last year is from Worldometer, and you can find it online at worldometers.info. Later, other sources have been made available to us as researchers, and data provided from researchers at Johns Hopkins University is one example. I continue to use the Worldometer website for the daily count of new cases because that's what I started with. And it's important to note, it's not just that new cases are added as each day goes by. The data is revised back to the start of contagion as necessary with each release of the data on the website, which can occur multiple times in a day. So let's talk about the rationale for statistical modeling versus alternatives by first discussing what the alternatives actually are. By and large, teams modeling and forecasting predominantly use differential equation models. They're referred to as deterministic compartmental models because the compartments consist some or all of exposed, asymptomatic non-infectious, asymptomatic infectious, symptomatic infectious, recovered, and survived. And you can also add a stochastic component upon the model as well. These models are well used for a single homogeneous population, but it is possible to link homogeneous populations to form a heterogeneous model. We know, for example, that transmission rates differ via geographical regions, and even within countries, there are differences within provinces and regions. Transmission is also based on cultural ethnicity and varies according to gender and age. An alternative model that's not as widely used, but is available, is referred to as agent-based. In the infectious diseases community, it's typically referred to as the IBM or an individual-based model. And this is a stochastic-only model that's based on a computer algorithm. It's not available in a deterministic form. I use all three types of these models, compartmental in both its deterministic and stochastic flavors, and the stochastic only IBM or individual-based modeling. These are very good for long-range forecasting for the entire duration of the contagion. But a key limitation of these three models is they must be modified when the transmission rate is altered due to changes in physical distancing rule by public health officers, changes by public health officers in quarantine rules for travelers, recommendation changes for masks from public health officers, and of course, in the last month or so, public health vaccination programs. And then we also have to cope with delays in delivery of vaccine, for example, in the United States and in Canada due to winter storms. We also have to be aware that transmission rates can alter with mutation of the virus. The advantage of a simpler statistical model is easier to modify with change points as the trajectory of the contagion changes. It's useful for extrapolation out to 4 weeks with the usual caveats that we give our students, that we shouldn't really be using linear models for extrapolation, but in this instance, there's really no other choice. So just to sum up, I use all 4 models in my forecasting on a regional scale, but I only use the statistical model on the global scale because there are too many homogeneous models to try and accommodate for different regions and different countries and different continents. So let's talk. The response variable is going to be the total number of cases. The explanatory variables are going to be the time index. Mine starts at 0 on the 21st of January, 2020, and we start with time index date 1 on the 22nd of January, and change points as determined by time index. The model is linear, and it's general because in the case of the globe, growth has been observed to be exponential. And so we use a general linear model for exponential growth with a natural logarithm length function. Now, the number of new cases is either 0 or a positive integer, and a normal distribution is a very poor model for discrete distribution, such as the number of new cases per day. The Poisson distribution is a better model in this instance than the normal distribution. However, it's not perfect in this instance either. We find that for the global data, the Poisson model is inadequate because the variance is greater than the mean. And we know in a Poisson distribution, the variance and mean should be equal. So when we have a greater variance than mean, we refer to it as an over-dispersed situation. And we refer to using an over-dispersed quasi-Poisson model. And this has found to be best for global data. Where I've been using is R with the general linear model function GLM or GLEM. And I use the R Commander graphical user interface for convenient data management, visualization for fast prototyping of new models, and visualization in a Shewhart C chart of forecasts and the ±6 sigma control limits. So my perspective in using the statistical model is that I'm seeing it from the lens of statistical process control, or SPC. And for me, the important thing is exit above the +6 sigma control limit. That will trigger a model revision. So let's go through the process in real time from the last time this was done, which was a week ago today. We start with the global Shewhart C chart with the ±6 sigma control lines from the modeling done on the 10th of January. Make here. The dispersion parameter is 64.5. The deviance explained by the statistical model is quite high at 99.99981%. One of the important things we look at is the time to double. And for this model, the doubling time was estimated to be 84.5 days with a 95% confidence interval from 82.6 to 86.4 days. I do note that the model from the 10th of January only lasted 8 days. The lower control limit was exited on the 18th of January and remained below the -6 sigma line through the 10th of February. The model therefore was updated at the typical 4-week interval because we didn't have an excursion from the upper control limit. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen right now and switch over to sharing my entire desktop so we can go through the modeling process in real time as happened a week ago today. Okay, you're seeing the whole screen there. Let me just go back. Stop share. I'm in full screen mode and it's a little bit too big. little bit overwhelming. There we go. It's getting this desktop ready. Okay, let me share screen again. Okay, so what you should be seeing right now is an R Commander window. And I'm just going to pop things up over here. And there we have the R console. But I also have an R script ready to go. So the data's already been loaded. This is going to be our first modeling attempt. As you can see, there are a number of variables that are used as explanatory variables. CP stands for change point, and after that indicates which day this change point occurred on the system. Of course, this modeling was from the 10th of January, and so we know it's out of date because we saw the excursion, but we're going to start with the model that was used on the 10th of January. So I'm just going to run the model right now. I'll highlight that and hit Control R. No error messages. Good. To take a look at the summary, which I will do by doing a Control R right now. The first thing I notice is the dispersion parameter has ballooned to 46,026.83 from 64.5. So that's telling me the model is not fitting the data that well with the days that have been added, and possibly with some of the modifications that have occurred over the course of more than a year. But the other disturbing thing is if I look at the p-values in the last column here, many of them are not statistically significant by any measure. So it looks like there is a bit of a problem with the model. To get a grip on that, I'm going to pull up the R Commander window. I'm going to make sure that I have selected active data set here, which is in Corona. And I've selected the active model that we just used. GL11.1 is the name of the active model. And now I'm going to save the residuals from the active model into the dataset Corona. And we'll do that under models by selecting add observational statistics to the data. And I'm just going to add the residuals and the studentized residuals. And we're going to take a look at these in turn. I already have variables with these names, and so I'm going to say yes to overriding both of them. And now I will go to graphs, and I'll go to box plot. And this is typically what I do. I then go and plot out the residuals to see if there are any outliers and to get an idea of the general shape of the distribution. And it pops in the window there, and we can see that we can barely see what's going on with the box because of the large number of outliers that we have. So the big problem we have is the model's failing because it's missing an important aspect of the data. Now, there's probably a need for a new change point. Maybe one of these numbers is going to be that new change point. So what I'm going to do is do a residual plot. I'm going to pull back the R Commander window, and I'm going to do the usual residual plot, only I'm going to do the residual plot with the studentized values. So the residual plot is a scatter plot of residuals, which in this case will be the studentized residuals. And along the horizontal axis, since the 21st of January, 2020. With that put in there, I will click OK, and we'll take a look at things. And you can see there's a spike. Things are going along fine until a certain date where our studentized residual is greater than 4. Well, we've got an inkling about where we might find our change point. So we go to View Data Set. We pull that up. We go to the column third from the right for R student, which is studentized residual. Go down to the bottom, go up to the top, and there's that value there. And that corresponds to the index day of 360. So we will add in a new change, and that's going to be at 360. So I'm going to close that window down. I'd create the new variable, but to speed things up, I'm just going to go to our second modeling attempt where the variable has already been created called CP360. And we're going to go and fit the model now. We're just going to overwrite the previous model and give that a go and see what that looks like. So it's highlighted and I will hit Control R now. There's an improvement in the dispersion parameter. It's dropped from 46,000 to 26,000, but it's still not perfect. And we can see over here that we still have some difficulties with these things, these coefficients not being statistically significant as they were when the model was done back on the 10th of January. So we're going to repeat the process again and try and track where the next change point is that we missed. So I'm going to pull up our commander window again. I'm going to make sure that we're using GLM1. I'll go to models and I'm going to add the observational statistics to the data and overwrite what we had for the residuals and the studentized residuals. I'm going to click OK and say yes to overwrite twice. And to speed things up, I'm just going to go straight to the scatter plot to see if we can find out where the problem is by plotting the studentized residuals versus index for a residual plot. And we have a problem. There's a value of 6 there. And again, if we go view data set, we're going to look for a large number of 6, and that will be our likely change point for our second change point. And it wasn't 6, it was 5.93, and that corresponds to index day 368. Okay, so to speed things up, we're running short a little bit of time. I'm just going to go ahead because there's another change point that needs to be added. And I'm going to go to the final model at this point and scroll through here. This is the 4th modeling attempt, and it's the last one we're going to need. So we've added a change point at 368, but another one at 375. We skipped that process. You've seen it twice. And let's take a peek at things. Wow, look at that. The dispersion parameter, well, it isn't 64.5, but it's looking really good. And if we look at the regression coefficients for all of our variables, they're looking nicely statistically significant there. We should do a quick check on the residual plot to see that things are fine, and we'll do that. I'll go back to the R Commander window. We'll go to models, and for one final time, we'll add observation statistics to data, being the residuals and the studentized residuals. I'll click OK, say yes twice, and we'll do a box plot and see how things look. So let's do that. We'll do a box plot of the residuals. And as you can see now, there are many fewer outlying values deemed suspected outliers. But to give you an idea of what things look like, I'm going to do a non-parametric density plot here to let you know and let you see that we are in fact dealing with a situation of over-dispersion. That doesn't really look like a normal curve at all, and it's quite broad. And our one final check is going to be going to graphs and doing the residual plot. I think we're all ready to go here. I like working at this stage with the studentized residuals because they roughly have a normal distribution with a sample this big. And so if they're in excess of -3 or 3, then I'm a little bit concerned. So let's click apply. We've got one observation greater than 3. I'm not going to fuss over that. So we're doing okay. We can see that as the index goes along, that the variation increases. But that's kind of like the best that we're doing here. I'm going to close that window down. And the next thing we're going to do is do a plot of the data. And there's our revised Shewhart C chart with ±6 sigma control limits. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen at this point. And I'm going to return to sharing the slideshow. And we'll pick back up where we left off. So the summary is on the following slide, and let me just go to slideshow and do it from the current slide. There we go. So three change points were added, and those dates are the 15th, 2021. The Dispersion parameter is quite similar to that for the model from the 10th of January, 64.4. Deviation explained by the statistical model is fantastic, but this time the doubling time has actually doubled, which is a good thing. We kind of got that picture on the slide when we saw it falling off and below the -6 sigma control limit. And yes, the doubling time actually doubled. It's estimated to be 167.6 days with a 95% confidence interval from 162.4 to 172.9. So many thanks to the conference organizers for the invitation to present today, and thanks to Worldometer for working so hard to provide and update the global count of cases. And I would like to acknowledge support from the University of Northern British Columbia and the Centre for Heart-Lung Innovation of Providence Healthcare Research Institution at St. Paul's Hospital. That's what I was trying to do today in the presentation. I think we've got everything done. But one last thing on the to-do list, and that is to open things up now for any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
So
Okay,
I have
thank
a
you very
question.
much, Dr. Yes, please go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead. Sorry. A very interesting talk. So I had several questions, but one is, of course, your choice of the Poisson model, okay? And when you say linear, do you mean log linear? So you have an exponential development and you take the log linear model.
Yes,
All
yes.
right.
Yep.
Thank you. Fine. So afterwards say Poisson is not the thing you would want because you don't have, it doesn't model well because variance and mean differ. Could you mean?
It's a process of iterative improvement. Everyone starts out with a simple model first. So you start out with normal error, and then you have to do a presentation to physicians after the first piece time last year when things were quietening down in April and May, and you're showing a negative number of change from day to day in the total number of cases. That doesn't work. So then the next thing you do is you say, well, okay, let's be more realistic and say, yes, it is a Poisson process, we think, and give that a try. So you then fit the Poisson model, and it doesn't quite work that well, and you notice the reason is it's over dispersed, and you go, right, now I'm going to do a quasi-Poisson model with my GLIM function, with the link function being the natural logarithm, and let's see how well that fits the data, and then, oh, gee, that resolves all the problems that I was having.
Great. One last question is, in Germany now, we are talking a lot about mutations because we have to deal with three kinds of mutations. The one comes from England, the one from Africa, and the one even from Brazil. So the mutations are, we are in a phase of lockdown, and we are now, people are trying to model the exponential growing curve of the which we have because of the mutations, and try to balance up the going down through the lockdown with these mutations. And we are very scared that the mutations could be so strong that the curve again, gets growing and scaring everybody. Are you dealing with this kind of problem also?
Yes, I was in a meeting earlier this week for an hour, and there are two takeaways that I'd like to share. First of all, the number of mutations is a function of the numbers of copies of the virus that you have. So the more people that have the virus, the more copies of the virus you have, and the greater likelihood that there is going to be mutation. Yeah. Second takeaway message is that there have been many more mutations, but they have not been deleterious, and they have gone undetected. Okay. RNA is not particularly stable, and mutations are frequent and are to be expected. And there are many more that have occurred that haven't been a concern. Now, for the ones that are a concern, we just have to treat it like it's a new contagion. There's been some discussion about one predominating and there being a competition among the different viruses. That's not really the case. What's happened is it's mutated, and it shouldn't be a surprise. This happens every flu season, although not this flu season because of lockdown in my part of the world. We didn't have a flu season. We kind of missed it by social distancing and washing hands and wearing masks. We just had transmission of SARS-CoV-2. And we are now seeing the mutations. And we are expecting, for example, the UK strain, as it's been called, the B117 or B117, to start rising, and it would be exponential if it weren't for our public health measures. So it will be displacing, in terms of the number of cases, what we've been seeing, basically because the old virus is starting to die out and the new virus is more transmissible. And unfortunately, from data that I saw over the weekend from the UK, it seems to be associated with a higher degree of morbidity as well too. So it's a catch as can game. It'll be interesting to see how well the vaccines, all the different vaccines that we have created, that are going to be doing well or not well against the new mutations. So I've got hopes that we're going to be doing okay against UK1, but we are going to see a rise in the number of cases because it's more transmissible, and we're going to be picking them up in the hospitals because of the higher morbidity associated with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Very interesting.
If you would stop sharing your slide, then I could see you more easily, Dr. Keen.
There we are.
Okay, thank you. So does any other participant online or in the hall, any other questions? Okay, Dr. Kevin Keen, thank you very much for this extremely informative talk. Okay, there's a question from the hall, Kevin.
Okay, go ahead, please.
What are the criteria for judging the mortality?
What are the criteria for judging the mortality?
Okay, so for morbidity, there's two aspects that we really look at. One is somebody admitted to the hospital because the situation is sufficient to require that, and the other is the concern that, of course, we have enough ventilators, and so we keep track of those admitted to ICU. In my part of the world, every ICU bed has 2 ventilators. And the reason why it's 2 ventilators per bed is ventilators have to be serviced, and occasionally they can break down as well too. We've never reached a point where in British Columbia, we have been anywhere near reaching capacity in our intensive care units just due to COVID-19 alone. And that's because we've taken strong social distancing measures. We're under a form of lockdown here, and it's worked fairly well for us. And when we recognize that we relax things too quickly, it took us 2 weeks to figure out what had went wrong, and another 2 months to recover to the point we were at after we fell off the bandwagon, as it were. And by the time you've detected an increase and improved your social distancing measures, you still might have to wait 2 more months before it comes down to the level you were at when it took off.
So what was the reason for the question that you put? Would you like to?
Yeah, how do we measure
morbidity?
Yeah, and obviously there's only one measure for mortality, but in all the data that we're looking at, if we look at the global scale, every region, every country actually defines whether someone has COVID-19 or not differently. So we have an issue that our random variable, the definition of our random variable being the number of new cases, is itself a random variable.
Ah, okay. Some
evaluation of this.
I'm having trouble hearing the question. Can you relay it, Saliha?
I'm not clear myself, sorry.
Assessment and evaluation of this.
Assessment and revision,
Yes.
evaluation, assessment and evaluation of what? Of mortality? Assessment and evaluation of mortality. Yani, what's the question?
Injection.
Pardon me?
Injections. Conjunctions.
Conjunctions?
Conjunctions.
Conjunctions.
I'm not quite following what the question is.
I'm not clear. Okay, so it's all right. I just have one thing from my side. In Pakistan, some people think that maybe there's some, one way of thinking is that maybe we are more immune to it. So even if we are not having too much of, extremely rigid social distancing, even so, still the rate is low. So what do you think? Can it be something like this, that in some part of the world, people are more resistant to this virus?
There might be small pockets, but by and large, human biology is pretty universal, and I can't see a particular a high degree of resistance to it for any particular reason. The use of masks, physical distancing, these things are really effective in slowing transmission of an infectious disease. And that's what we've been using to this point in time. You've got the physical barrier of the mask, and then you've got physical distance as being a physical barrier. And we're adding to that now, of course, vaccination programs, which are providing people with a greater degree of resistance. But if you look at the results for any of the vaccines, they're not 100%. There's not a guarantee. So this comes back, I think, to the presentation by Laura and by Akai on risk and assessing the risk. One way I like to presenting the way of looking at a statement that there's a 90% risk, although it's not entirely accurate, is that it's best to think that if you've been vaccinated and you've had your second shot and it's 2 weeks later and it's 90% effective, that you recognize or assume that 9 out of 10 exposures you will walk away from without COVID-19, but from one of them you will. And so it's going to be a very slow release as the vaccination numbers get high enough towards herd immunity that we don't rush ourselves in too fast. And so people have to be very patient. Even when, vaccination programs are widely effective, it's not going to be a complete inhibition and return to the way things were a year ago at this point in time, because things can get out of hand very quickly, as I said.
There's one more question. Would you come here, please, sir?
Survival time.
आप इधर आ जाएं.
The size of the virus also counted for.
Please, आप इधर आ जाएं.
There's a bit of an echo in the hall if they're not close to the
Just
microphone.
hold on. Please, आप आ जाएं. I'm just calling him to the mic.
Yeah.
आप यहाँ पे बात करें.
I am Dr. Muhammad Ayub Khan from University of Karachi,
Hi.
working on space science and applied physics on theorizing the physical phenomena. I'm asking you the survival time and the size of the germ, or what we say, the coronavirus is also accounted for this spread of this disease. What about you think about the survival time and size of the coronavirus?
Well, I think we had an animal virus jump to humans. I think that's what happened. It's an RNA virus, so We have RNA versions of the flu, and we know that we can start a flu season with one strain and then a slight mutation and larger number of cases, not in November in our hemisphere, but in February. And we're seeing mutations as well right now. As I've said, most of them go undetected because they're not causing any problems at all. The ones that reach our attention are when someone is much sicker than we would have expected, or many more people are coming down with COVID symptoms than we would normally have expected. And then you do the sequencing on PCR, and then you find out where the mutation, that you're dealing with the mutation. Now, the issue is, of course, if a mutation occurs in one place and you still have large numbers in other places, you can have a simultaneous occurrence of that same mutation. So it's not, you just can't point to one country or one locale and say, well, it all came from there. Well, no, if you've got a large number of cases in the weak aspect of the RNA code, then that same mistake can occur in other locales too.
And absorption from distant places. We got absorption and diffusion from distant places. How can you think about this?
Okay.
Both are very important phenomena, diffusion and absorption.
Right, and this is where we started out last year. We said, well, we don't think a mask is going to do you any good. And then 6 months ago, they said, well, you should be wearing a mask. And now where we are right now, we're saying in Canada, you should be wearing a 3-layer mask where you've got high thread count cotton on the inner and outer layers, and the middle layer should be unwoven polypropylene. And the idea is to have a dense enough barrier to stop the aerosol particles and the larger and smaller droplets from entering into your nasal cavity and your oral cavity. And we're increasing the physical barrier to do that, but we're doing it in such a way so that we can still breathe.
कनेक्शन भी बीच में लूज हो रहा है तो आपको सुन नहीं पा रहे हैं पूरी तरह। मेरा ख्याल है ये इसको ईमेल के थ्रू मेरा ख्याल डिस्कशन हो सकती है। बस आप शुक्रिया।
Because aerosol is not, this virus is not aerosol actually, because we following the Atkinson particle size.
No, aerosolizing procedures can result in infection in medical staff. And so the PPE protections increase during an aerosolizing procedure. And it's recognized that just simply running and physically exerting yourself puts more than just droplets in the air. It also puts in aerosol particles as well too. So the hypothesis a year ago was we didn't have to worry about aerosol transmission. It was only going to be by droplet, and we've reached the point where that's not the case. And when we're looking at the more effective masks that are being produced for the general public, we're very much looking at what the performance is based on micro diameter of the particles that can be carrying the virus.
Because we follow the fixed law, that is diffusion equation. We can also have to follow all these aerosols, convection and radiation.
Okay, actually, I wish you could have continued, but the time is now almost over. So I'll have to cut this discussion in the middle. Thank you very much, Dr. Kevin Keane, for this talk. And thank you, sir, very much for your interest and all the questions that you put. I think maybe you can have an email discussion now. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you very much.
एक तो ये मैं इसको जी मेरा अगर slide show कर दें. I just wanted to say a few words at the end. Can you see my screen now? ये फिर नहीं चल रहा.
यहाँ है दबा लें यानी अब होएगा
Actually, Dr. Muhammad Hanif, he was going to deliver his speech, but he is not well. I mean, he was here in the morning, but he had to go back. He's not feeling very well at this point in time. So we could, we skip it or I read it out for him. Just skip that. Basically, it is, tremendous appreciation for all of you who have given so much of your time for us, and particularly for those people for whom it is very early in the morning or it is very late at night, such as people in Canada. What time is it at your place, Kevin, right now?
It's just about 4 in the morning.
And you've been with us since 1 in the morning. It's already
Yes.
3 hours.
Yes.
So I would like to request the people in the hall to please give him a big hand. And to all the other speakers too, because people are in 6 different continents of the world. I just wanted people to clap so that all of you could, our speakers could hear at least the applause, if not anything else, to know that people are listening and watching. My Pi-Star team, I've put here, Mr. Muhammad Iftikhar, who is the Executive Secretary of ISOS, and also a very important, we regard him as a very important member of the Pi-Star team as well. Professor Muhammad Aslam, professor retired, he retired from FC College University. He was the head of department there for a very long time. And at this moment in time, he's helping us with various things, and more importantly, with the statistical consultancy service that we have just now started. Dr. Sharka Hashmi, assistant professor at Lahore College for Women University, an integral part of the Pi-Star team. Ms. Zulekha Mashkood is a lecturer at Minhaj University, Lahore. Ms. Kamal Aslam, who's right here in the hall right now, she's my own student. She has done MPhil in statistics from Kinnaird College in flying colors. And Ms. Aqsa Abid, who has completed her BSc honors in statistics, also sitting right here. And believe you me, everybody, she also does at this young age, tons of work. The focal person, of course, is none other than Dr. Syed Wasim Abbas, who all of you invited speakers must have heard me 20 or 40 times. Wasim, please help me come here and do this and do that. Because, I'm finding it a little difficult here in operating this computer. So he's always there to do everything. And I'm Saliha. And thank you very much, everybody. All of you who stayed here till the end of the day 1 of the conference. And to all the people who are in different parts of the world, and you have done this for us. Olawale, unfortunately, could not be connected at this time. Even now, I checked with Dr. Wasim. He has, I think he is engaged somewhere else importantly. So maybe we can have him as an invited speaker next time. So Dr. Professor Shah Jahan Khan, Enriqueta, Akai, Laura, and Kevin. Thank you very much for this online session of international invited speakers.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you and bye-bye. Thank you.
This is the end of the program. Thank you. And what about my screen? They can't see me either. How do I open my camera? Let me open my camera. That I think I can do. Can I do it? You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it. Just wait a bit. I would like to, अभी भी नहीं हो रहा जी, बताइए. Start my video. Okay. And now can you see me?
We can see you.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
And this is my mask. And
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you very much.
Very
a
much.
lot.
Bye bye.
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 And bye-bye to you on behalf of everybody in
Thank
the
you,
hall.
Saleka. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks.
thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.